episode, and I'm so excited to be here with you today with my friend Kevin Potner. Hey, Kev.
Hello, Joyce.
So, whether you're brand new to my channel or you are someone who's familiar with me, what I'd like to start out by saying is that I believe and I know that your body has the ability to heal from the inside out. And this requires two things, both emotional and physical nourishment and detoxification. And so, Kevin, I'm so excited to have you with us today.
Excited as well. Thank you.
Thanks so much for being here. So I want to introduce Kevin to you. Kevin and I, first of all, have known each other for 31 years. And we met in college back at Rochester Institute of Technology back in 1989, right? That was our year. Yeah. Kevin and I were actually a thing. We were boyfriend and girlfriend back in those days. And we've really seen a number of reincarnations of both of our lives over the years. And, you know, I'll just let Kevin start talking and, you know, introduce himself. And Kevin, feel free to talk about, like, you know, where you live, are you married, your occupation, what your joys are, and just let people know a little bit about you first, and then we'll talk about why we reconnected.
Okay, great. So I live in San Francisco with my wife, Vivian. I'm a statistical scientist for my job, but I like to sort of be a left brain, right brain person. So, you know, get a lot of joy out of like gardening and cooking. You know, nature is I would say the center of everything that brings me joy. You know, all the way down to I sort of rear little caterpillars and butterflies and, you know, create little artwork out of them and other things in the garden and do little, you know, flower arranging and such. So, yeah, just the natural world has always been, I think, what grounds me.
Yeah. I remember even when you were like really young, before I met you, I'd seen pictures of photography experiments and artistic creations that you and your buddy Pete used to create. So that creativity is something that has always been flowing, right?
Yeah.
So Kevin and I have always been in contact over the years, even though we dated for, I guess, under 8 years, but it was a long time that we were together kind of as a couple. We never really figured that out. But the point is that we've always been in touch. But about 2 years ago, April or so, maybe March or April of 2018, we reconnected. And we reconnected because there were some things going on with you, with your health. And so why don't you share with everyone, you know, what was going on? What were your struggles? What was happening around that time?
So there was sort of a little traumatic event with regard to my career that you know, really threw me for a loop and sent me into just a level of sadness and depression that, you know, I had never experienced, and it was quite difficult, quite challenging, and at that time, you know, my wife Vivian and I were just sitting there like, you know, what do? We got to really sort of like have our mind open to everything from therapy to even just traditional doctors of getting blood work done just to make sure, you know, nothing was amiss there. And then I like to think that I always try to practice just a holistic way of health. And so obviously, you said we reconnected, but we've been connected all that time, but we reconnected more with this specific issue. And so, you know, I wanted to be pretty broad in my thinking and feeling, okay, how do I approach this from a natural holistic perspective? Because I've always considered that, something that unfortunately society typically dismisses. I think it's changing quite a bit, and people do see the importance of things like diet, sleep, exercise, all those things that, gut health, all that turns out to be a much bigger driver of our health and healing than I think we grew up in, certainly growing up in the 70s and 80s. So, Joyce, you've always been kind of a center of that for, going back those 30 plus years. from just diet, just to have what always kind of seek your advice about stuff like that. Like, how would you consider eating this healthy or not healthy, and food, from everything from food combining and, pulling, more vegetarian plant-based diet into your life, and, exercise, colonic irrigation, just, yoga, all the way now, to essential oils that I just feel like you're holistic within inside of holistic, that you really cover the holisticness of holism. And so at that time, it's like, I want to be doing everything. And for a couple of reasons too, which is that I think when you commit to your health, that in itself, I think, puts your mind in a different perspective, because you're sort of taking on this responsibility, and you're saying, I'm going to center my energy on getting better. And I think that causes things that I don't even know what they are, but your brain is seeing you fight. It's seeing you go, hey, I don't want to be in this state. I want to be healthier. And maybe there's things happening that are hard to describe, but I noticed that commitment was huge. And so, figuring out let's get essential oils into the mix was definitely an answer that we wanted to pursue.
Can you speak a little bit more into, you started to talk about something changed in your career that really set things off. I don't know if you feel comfortable talking about more specifics around that, but if you do, that's fine. And if not, can you talk a little bit more into what was going on? What was the mindset? What was the darkness that you were experiencing, so that people can really understand and relate?
Yeah, it was a combination of the career, but it was also sort of a lifestyle. So the particular the job I had at that time created sort of this lifestyle that really worked for me and my wife, and the life we wanted to have, and sort of the job had a lot of travel, which I liked, and just the time I got to spend with her, because the job also provided a lot of time at home. So sort of it felt like getting the rug, pulled out from under me was less about, that job or that job. But so like in my mind, I sort of painted this is what it's going to be for the next, whatever, 10, 15 years. And then when that just gets turned around on you, you just feel like you lose all sense of groundness. So a big thing is I didn't feel grounded or anything to hold on to, and was sort of just blowing in the wind, and didn't feel like I had control over how I was blowing in the wind, and was, getting pretty concerned that the wind was blowing me to extremes that I was not comfortable being in.
Yeah. So what would you say was the main emotion that was really taking over your day to day?
Um, there was sort of a, like, I don't, can I just say confusion? There was like, I don't know what to do. I'm known to be a planner, and I haven't, that analytical side of me, and so like to see plans and paths forwards and answers to solutions, and when that just sort of, almost like a sand that just gets blown away when you had it all arranged, that it was like I didn't have a direction to look or something. It was kind of this lack of just feeling grounded. And of course, the problem is, it just feeds on itself, because I wasn't sleeping well. And when you are not getting sleep, that's huge, that's enormous. And so you start off the next day, and you're already depressed from the situation that you are in. But when you don't get enough sleep, and your brain hasn't healed itself, or what it has to do, then that in itself is even worse, and it's just kind of which keeps you up even more. And so yeah, I was just feeling quite a bit lost. And then your body doesn't feel good. You're tired, you're fatigued, you can't focus, you're scared. It was a lot. But I would say I would feel it both mentally, and physically.
What about if I said the word anxiety?
Oh God, yeah, yes, of course, yeah. There's quite a bit of anxiety, yeah.
Yeah, and I mentioned that because that's the word that I really have in my memory bank from when we started really going in and talking about like what were the core issues, and sadness.
Yeah, I say sadness, but that almost trivializes a little bit because it was like deep sadness, more
Yeah.
so than just, I'm sad today.
Almost more like darkness.
Yeah, yeah, that would be, yeah, dark sadness
Okay.
or sad darkness.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's just great to see you laughing now. It's really shifted.
Yeah, that was it. I felt like I lost who I was, and I was like, I
Mhm.
don't know if my personality is going to come back. Um, and I remember at the beginning of it, and I was telling our neighbor, who we were very close with. We kind of always talk over the fence, the classic neighbor relationship. And this is right at the beginning, and I thought, I don't know who I'm going to be, like where this is going. And I remember saying to him while I'm telling him what's happening, and I said, like, I'm sorry, I'm not going to be myself anymore. I had said to him, like, of course he's like, what are you, you're going to come back. I was like, I wanted to apologize up front for what you're going to witness, going forward. And the words, I don't remember exactly, but it was something like that. Like, I'm sorry, I'm not going to be the person you've come to know.
Yeah. It's like you felt your own identity slipping away from you.
Yeah, that's exactly correct. Yeah.
As you say that and as you share that, first of all, that's pretty vulnerable. So thank you for presenting that. It reminds me of when I was a kid and my dad was suffering, as you know, he suffered for many years with manic depression. And my mom came home from the hospital with him after the very first shock therapy treatment. And she said, Daddy's okay. And he's had a treatment, but he might not remember who you are.
Wow.
So to hear you talk about yourself in this moment, looking back and seeing yourself as like this personality that you once knew is fading away reminds me of that moment. And I'm just so glad to be here with you now, knowing that you've turned that all around.
Well,
So,
part of it.
yeah. And, you said something that's really powerful early on. I don't want to glaze over it, which was talking about when you make that decision to take care of your health and how your brain and your mind start to connect. That is a powerful statement. I mean, you might not know it, but that's something called neuroplasticity of the brain.
Yeah.
Something I'm studying a lot of right now. And so, anyone listening, I would say the easiest way to pull yourself out of darkness is to stop trying to associate yourself with your past and instead think of what it is you want to create in your future, because we are not defined by our past. So let me ask you this next question to keep things moving forward. We had your struggles now shared, triggered by the occupational shift, feeling the intense darkness, feeling like your personality was being pulled away. What made it the right time? Like, was there a very specific thing that you said, like, as I started talking with you more, hey, there's essential oils for all of these things. Like, what made you decide that at that moment was the time to invest in your health in a different way? Because were you working with psychiatrists at that time already? Were you working with?
Yeah. So everything from, starting off with just a general practitioner, which is, I just want like the full blood panel, right? I just want to make sure that something's not out of whack there, because like the anxiety and losing sleep, I might be something may be happening with just, hormones and all the things that your glands are overworking and all that kind of stuff. So I was like, let me at least get some, data and some information there,
Yeah.
of course, seeing a therapist, and then everything from like, okay, if I'm not sleeping and not getting enough sleep, which is clearly not helping, then I'm like, okay, what kinds of things can I do, to get that sleep? And a lot of it is like, okay, I've got to I've got to minimize the negative content that's coming in. So things like, watching the news or, those kinds of things that trigger you and your brain starts processing and gets you angry and all that. And just trying to really make things simpler. Try to making the house just more soothing, and like taking a bath at night. Like there was, this is a silly thing, but I remember getting into the British Bake Off. I don't know if you've ever seen that show, but there's a soothing nature to that show. And I just was like, I'd sit on the couch and watch the British baking show.
I love that. Well, any cooking show is very therapeutic, right?
But this isn't an intense one, it's all with the British politeness, and they're making cookies and crumpets and everything.
That's so you. So you had been doing a number of things with pharmaceuticals, seeing a psychiatrist.
Both of us went to a psychiatrist, under the direction of my therapist. Like, let's get a psychiatrist involved. But again, I think when you commit to all of those things, it's almost, and if any of the listeners have experienced this, is, when you go to see a therapist, sometimes you wonder what the therapist is doing, because they're just sitting there going, and how does that make you feel? They're asking, but I think what's happening is you yourself are working on yourself as soon as you say, I'm going to go fix this. And you go to a therapist. And sometimes I don't know, was it the therapist that helped me, or did I help myself by forcing myself to help myself because I'm going to a therapist? Because I don't want to show up the next week and have it improved. That's not, so I think there's a lot of that when your brain, I've never had a serious, physical illness. But, when people talk about, fighting through cancer and those kinds of, like, they're fighting, right? You're like, what does that mean? They're fighting. And it's some kind of commitment in their brain that is like, I'm not going down like this. Right. This isn't going to be the end, and they fight. And I think when you work on your health like that, in all the various ways you can, especially when you sort of do it holistically from every possible angle of, everything from like taking a soothing bath at night, or, smelling some, nice lavender essential oils, to speaking with a therapist. So really, I know we had some conversations where, you were almost playing the role of a therapist as well. A dear friend that's known me for a while, and I was able to be very, vulnerable with you. And in a way, maybe that's hard to do in front of a therapist, because, you don't have a established relationship. And, and you're other than my therapist and my wife, that I told you things that no other person, knows. Yeah. And you've always had it. Like, you have a commitment to people's well-being and people getting the most out of their life through their health, that I know you're a person, like, I got to pull you into this mix. Like, you just have this positive, like, nurturing energy. I mean, I love you, and I know you feel the same about me. And so, going through something tough, it's like, I like, Joyce has to be part of the healing.
Well, thank you. When I heard how heavy it was, I pretty much insisted. I'm like, okay, you might not know anything about essential oils, but I think we need to talk. Yeah. Because I really knew that I could help you. And it was like, it would have been an injustice not to speak up. Right. So, were there side effects to the medications you were taking?
At the very beginning, and I didn't stay on this, but at the very beginning, and it was because I wasn't sleeping at all. Like, the doctors were concerned, because they were like, in fact, there was a moment when it all started. I went 3 full days without sleeping a wink. 3 full days. Right. And I remember going to a doctor, and as soon as I said those words, his eyes just popped out of his head, and he was like, first thing we got to do is get you sleeping. We can figure, like, the next thing. And so, maybe it was Ambien. That's a pretty heavy sleeping thing. And that's not meant to be on as a sleep aid. It's more like, we have got to figure out how to get you to sleep. And then, we can start working on stuff. Because if you're not sleeping, this isn't helping at all. So I remember that was maybe a few weeks or something on him. And one of the side effects is, like, you're sweating like crazy. And I mean, sweating to the point where in the middle of the night, you wake up and literally had to change the sheets. Not, you say you have to change the sheets. Like, wow. The sheets come off. I have to change, like, the pajamas, the boxers, the t-shirt, because you're wet. Like, you're wet. And the bed is wet even under the sheet. So we had to, like, I remember having to put a towel under where you then put the sheet. You know what I mean? The towel goes down, then the sheet goes on top, then the fitted sheet goes on top of it. And it wasn't unusual to we were washing the sheets every day.
Oh my God.
As I wake up. So luckily that was just this temporary thing. So I could get to sleep, and then we moved on from that. But that was just something that the psychiatrist is like, I got to start with this because I can't work with you if you're not sleeping.
Yeah. Even if it meant you sleeping in an empty bathtub.
Yeah.
To do with the sweat, right? I mean, it's cute that we can joke about these things after the fact, but really it was no joking matter at the time. And it was pretty heavy. It was very dark. There were these side effects going on. And so how were the struggles you were going through really getting in the way of your job, your personal life, you're married, your friends, like work? I mean, for work, you're training, just so people know, you can tell them, like, you train groups, right? So why don't you tell them a little bit more about
Yeah. So I taught, right? So I would teach classes in statistics to engineers and scientists out in industry. That was the job that ended, and I had a good contact with another company in the same space. In fact, the two were competitors of each other, and so I had gotten to know some folks there. But when I'm in that state, I actually have to get another job. So you have to be at your best just to perform, and being scared that, oh, I may lose this next opportunity, not because I'm not qualified and capable of doing the job, but I just can't perform in an interview, or the anxiety was too much, and so that worried me just in itself. I'm like, okay, now it's like it's a self-fulfilling prophecy of negativity, that bad things are happening because I can't bring out my personality, and I can't bring out like my engagement, especially if it's about teaching and presenting. You shouldn't come across as if you're morose and dark. you have to come across.
An ideal personality trait.
Yeah.
I just like thinking back at this moment to quickly interject. For people who are seeing you for the very first time, to really understand that your personality you're like a human jumping jack. That, when I first met Kevin, oh my God, it was at a party at his apartment in college. He was literally bouncing up and down, jumping up and down the entire night, like on his toes, not like a ballerina. But I mean, Grateful Dead music was playing. You were wearing your Grateful Dead t-shirt. I remember that as distinctly as yesterday. And, Kevin, you have like so much energy. You're so witty and funny, and your personality is just always on go. And so to know, at that time, that this was such a phase, such a different phase, such a dark phase, like I would have done anything I could have to help you get out of that mire.
Yeah. I would, and you had mentioned beyond just career, but obviously to be married, you have to be there you have to be somebody and be there for your spouse, and you're trying to lift each other up, and you also, there was sort of a guilt that came along too, because I was like, I don't want to be a weight, a burden, like an anchor, like that. That's how, that I want to be a positive influence, not that someone has to pull me off the ground. And there was a period of time. I mean, it took a handful of I'll say maybe like 3, 4, or 5 months. Like it's like I don't think I told a joke, which is very strange, or said something funny in a few months, and it was and people that would see me, it was clear something was amiss there.
Yeah.
So I mean, it was pretty early on that I think the essential oils became a part of it. It was like, one thing was, using the diffuser just for sleeping, right? And so like it was kind of always going on in the house, but some of the stuff I noticed with it is, and for some people, I assume people listening aren't all users of essential oils yet, so I'll kind of describe them.
Yeah, not yet. Yeah, go ahead and share.
So, I started off by saying like, nature is my love, like every sort of the natural world. And I was one of those people that when I would go hiking, I just loved smelling things, right? So as you walk by, especially out here in the West, like you pass by like a sage bush, right? And I would be the one on the hike that I would grab it and, I'd crumble it up, and as, walking, just, part of the hike, I would be doing this. And then, we have California bay trees, the bay leaf, and I'd break one off, and, I'd be, as I walk, I smell it. And, the outdoors has some just beautiful smells. And I'm not talking about like smelling flowers. I mean, just leaves, the earth. And I always had like smelling things is always kind of this sense that I like to, I don't know. I can feel it brings me joy. Like when you crumble up some sagebrush in your hand and smell that, or, walking by a little rosemary bush and grabbing that, or mint and cracking it open. Like I've always sort of liked that. So that's why I was like, oh, wait a minute. Essential oils is that same thing I know I've always loved, but in nice, convenient little bottle form. I don't have to walk 20 miles to find a sage bush.
Yeah, and it doesn't mean that we don't expose ourselves to nature. We certainly want to ground ourselves and get our feet in the dirt. And you have an incredible garden in your backyard with lime trees, lemon balm, chocolate mint, tons of things growing. But, we started talking about essential oils, and I was sharing with you that these pure plant extracts were our first form of medicine, and that you could start working with them to elicit a neural response in your brain. And, for me, learning how to use them for emotional support was how I first got started. And seeing you in this state mentally, I really felt empowered that I had some solutions for you. So we started talking about how you could work with them. And then what were some of the things you started mentioning, like sniffing, right?
Yeah.
But what were some of the things that you started doing on a daily basis to really create more of a routine for yourself?
Yeah. So I would sort of bring, because I travel for my job, I sort of have the little kit I would bring. And so one of the things I would have that would be in my little backpack I would carry, and also have it in my desk at the office, is the citrus, right? So the grapefruit, the lemon, the orange, and then as well as the mints, right? The peppermint. And would just, well, certainly in the morning, but, a couple times in the day, just a little dab, a little smell. You would sometimes say I'm sometimes a little aggressive, because I would like really, but I would notice that those citruses, and the peppermints, like when I smell them, I've tried to describe this. I was describing this to someone recently. It's, your cheeks would get a little flushed, like they're starting to and it causes you to sort of smile. It almost, and this is, not your thing, but it's almost like, when you have a little glass of wine, and it just sort of, just one little glass, and you're just a little pepped up, and you feel a little smiley. And I noticed that the citruses and the mints did that to me every time. And I was like, oh, this is great. Though a funny story is my boss comes walking into my office, and I had put the mint, and then I didn't see him. He just kind of came walking in. I'm going, no, it's essential oils. So it kind of just became this, multiple times a day, where I just felt like it, aside from that sensation, that concept of when you get connected to nature, because that's sort of what it feels like, right? You're smelling things in nature, and because it's sort of what I get tremendous joy in. But I think as a living creature, we're not meant to be in an office with fluorescent lights and a computer screen. That is not. We all have to do it, and we also allowed wonderful things. We get to do this right now. So, but that's not. We're supposed to be looking at plants. We're supposed to be outside, fresh air, the aromas in the environment, and so it was a way to do that. Again, you're in a downtown office or something, and it's gonna be. I'm not gonna come back to my garden until later, and so it would just kind of remind me of I'm a living creature. I'm a human being, and when those smells are around you, it's hard to say that doesn't make you happier. Even if I can't pinpoint like that, this oil does this to some element of my body. I don't know, but no question about it, I'm feeling better. And when you feel better, then I think your body's in that healing mode, right? You're like, okay, like joy brings health. It's, I can't imagine. And so, it's hard to pinpoint what specific things we're doing, but no question about it, I was joyous.
Yeah, you were also taking some supplements.
Oh yes, of course. Sorry, I forgot to mention that when you said the daily routine. Yes, so daily and nightly is the Vitality Pack, the probiotics. I forget the name of that one.
Tarzan.
Yeah, and then the frankincense.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do. That was a daily uh, routine, and sometimes I just work it in. One thing that we were doing a lot is um, letting the apples, like slicing up apples and letting them seep in the
On guard.
on guard. Yes, on guard. Oh, that became a regular thing because I'm traveling. I'm on planes all the time. I'm in hotels, and where you're just prone to get sick. And so on guard, both in the pill form, and then also, I'd put it in some water and let it soak into some like apples or fruit. So on guard was became a regular thing. And then more frequently when I was traveling, like if I've got a lot of travel, I would kind of take twice as much as I would if I was going through a period of time where I wasn't traveling.
For those listening who are not yet working with me with essential oils, On Guard is one of the proprietary blends from doTERRA that is designed to support our immune system. And what's really cool about it is that it reverses oxidative stress cellularly and on our food, right? So if you've ever cut up an apple and then you lay it out for guests, it's like half an hour later, it's turning brown.
It tastes good too. I think the apple tastes really good with that flavor.
Thing, right? So the On Guard, if you soak your apples in a bowl of water with some few drops of the On Guard oil, it reduces the oxidative stress to the fibers.
Yeah.
It keeps it from oxidizing and turning brown. But the On Guard, it literally tastes kind of like fall. It's like wild orange and clove. And
yeah. It's a perfect. Yeah.
Yeah, it's gonna be tasting. So, okay. What would you say, like you started having these shifts, right? So was there a timeline to the shifts?
Um,
It started in April of 2018.
Yeah, it was more of a gradual thing because, as you feel like, okay, I'm taking control now of my health and my mood and my situation, one thing leads to another, leads to another. And, then in my case, I got established into a new job, and that was going very well, and I was really enjoying it, and was succeeding at it, and so it's just like all of these things, like it was kind of like the momentum, and so during that first 6 months or so, and then it kind of got to the point where I'm like, I'm going to say I'm healed, but I don't mean to to say that, but I was like, I'm back. I'm myself again. But all those the health routines, doing everything from the essential oils, to stretching, yoga, bath time, eating healthier. That's a big thing too. Is when all that was going on, I was like, I need to just make sure I'm eating like the healthiest way I can, right? I'm an omnivore, so I have plant-based diet as well as a meat-based diet. But I was like, I got to be eating as clean as possible. I want to make sure like, my body's processing things, the oxygen, just all the stuff like that you're getting from good, quality food and nutrients. I'm not going to, versus like, if you sit there, eat a greasy hamburger and French fries and you're already not feeling healthy and sad, there's no way that that's helping. And so, yeah, I definitely.
Foods that you kind of took out of your mix for anyone listening who might be curious about those changes.
Most of it was just doing more of fruits and vegetables and grains, and less of like getting a pizza.
So, how did you say? I mean, sometimes it's hard to remember, like if we forget, we don't want to forget like where we came from. We certainly want to move forward, right? But just in terms of like looking back and where you are now, how do you get to make a difference in the lives of other people now that you are in this more sunshine state, right, of being, like your mind is and your mental health is really much more solidified?
Well, I always like to think I am a positive influence on people, or bring joy, but having sort of seen some sadness and depression and darkness, coming out the other side of that, that it's not only, oh, hey, I'm back to myself, and I bring joy and happiness and blah blah blah. I possess this level of empathy that
Mm.
I don't think I had before,
Mm.
because I didn't experience that darkness, right? So sometimes when you would see people that were depressed, there would be a tendency to be like, oh, what's wrong with them, right? And then you're like, oh no, that can happen to anybody. That can happen to you. And then just coming out of that, like there's just this shift of like I'm kinder than I've ever been in my life to people that I'm around. I have a lot more patience than I ever used to have.
Mm.
Where I'd get kind of triggered and irritated by someone. I now see people at fellow humans as like, I don't know what that person is going through. I have no idea what that, and where maybe you're getting annoyed because the waiter or waitress got your order wrong, or whatever, those things that like in typical day we're trying to get somewhere and we're busy and you're getting annoyed. And now I see everybody and I look and I'm like, you have no idea if that waiter or waitress, just ended a significant relationship this morning or this weekend, and you don't know what they had to do. They might be working while they have a pounding headache,
Yeah.
but they're still there because they have to make their money and pay their rent. And so I kind of go out in the world now and I view everything different. I'm kinder. I'm more patient. I possess way more empathy than I ever have. And so that I think it's not just that, hey, you're not this depressed person and you're this happy person and people like to be around you and bring joy. People occur to me differently.
Mm.
I see them differently. And so I think even if I don't directly interact with that person, I'm like, like with the sort of the Gandhi approach, be the change you want to see in the world. So I go out in the world, and even before, I'm not talking about the dark time to now. I'm talking about now to when I thought I was great. That is I'm a kinder, just more empathetic, just I think a positive person, and just the kind word keeps on coming back because I look at people, the strangers that you're interacting with, and I engage with people more. Sometimes I'm checking out of the hotel, and there's the maid or the cleaning staff, and they're in the hallway with their, the little push cart. And as I'm coming out, where before I just walk past them, right? Maybe say hi. Now I'll be like, hey, how thanks for cleaning my room this week. Maybe there's a sentence or two conversation like, have you been up to the hotel long, or like you lived in the area? Like, I'm going to eat dinner tonight around here. Do you know of a nice restaurant? Like I'm engaging with people that I may have just said hi to. And I didn't think I wasn't being kind. I was like, I said hi to them and thank you or whatever. But it's different now. I'm not just saying hi and thank you. I'm like connecting. I'm actually connecting with them.
That's the word that came to me a moment ago. I'm like crying. So, it's so beautiful to hear you talk about your transformation and to know that you've been able to create such a deeper connection, not only to yourself and within your marriage, but with everyone that you come in contact with throughout your life. Like, I can't think of a more beautiful healing than the one you've gone through. And it really is something I'm very honored to have been a part of.
Well, more than being a part of, pat yourself on the back for actually helping create that.
And I want to thank you for being so open to this modality. Because like I said in the beginning, I knew I could help you. And what's really important on the other side of that is that someone is open to what that looks like. And so I'm just, so moved by who you are. I've always been moved by who you are, but I'm even more moved now because you've created so much more authenticity within your existence, within yourself. And that other people get to receive that gift on a daily basis is the greatest, most beautiful gift of all. So good for you.
Thank you.
And I guess the only thing I don't know if there's any way to top that. Is there anything else that you feel like you'd like to say maybe to anyone listening who might be in as dark of a space as you were, or maybe even darker?
Okay. Yeah. Well, you make these kinds of conversations very, very easy, right? You connect tremendously with people. Like, you're there. You were there for me, but I know it's not just me. Like, you go out in the world that way. Like, you believe that, like, you can transform things through health, and it's true. We have a healthy people. We have happier people. We have a healthier planet. It's just that it's almost godlike to take care of ourselves like a temple and think of our body as a temple. And there are things we don't have control over, right? There's just genetic things that happen there. We all unfortunately have to deal with kind of a toxic environment, and plastics in the ocean, and the fish, and mercury, and the salmon, and pesticides, and we can't escape it. We try the best we can. So I remember you said a long time ago, this is going back like 30 years, that you would refer to like at the beginning, I would say, "Oh, why are you doing this? Why are you doing this?" And you're like, "My body's a temple. I don't know if you still say that expression, but I remember you saying that 30 years ago." And aside from the benefits of treating your body like a temple, thinking of it that way, that in itself, like, you now start to respect yourself in a way that you may not have, and seeing that, like, life is a gift, and I'm gonna be what goes into my body, I'm gonna put a lot of conscious effort to, but not just the concept of dealing with depression or anything like that. Just everything that we've done together over all those 30 years with regard to health and just awareness. I actually remember back, I mean, this is going back to the late 80s, that when we would all get into a car, you wouldn't let the car drive until everybody put on a seatbelt. If you remember this.
I still do.
Okay, well, yes, because we all do now. But back in the 80s, we didn't, right? You get in the car, and I remember if you were driving, you're like, "I refuse to start driving until and we'd all like laugh and complain, whatever. But it's so funny, you were so ahead of your time, because the thought of not wearing a seatbelt now is absurd. Like, it would be like in fact, if I have to take it off for a second, sometimes I'm like gonna take off my coat. I'm like nervous in this 1 minute. I'm gonna get into an accident. And so, like, you've always been this person that you look at life from all the different perspectives of how to treat our body, like a temple. So aside from the essential oils path, anybody that has the opportunity to work with you, and whether it's essential oils, whether it's colonic irrigation, whether it's gut health, whether it's food combining, whether it's the physical exercises, and yoga and all, are you still bouncing?
I just sit on the rebounder.
Okay, you still bouncing, yeah. But just that whole thing, and then it's like a form, it's like you're a therapist, right? Because when you're doing this for someone's health, it's not just saying, "Hey, go over there and exercise," or eat less carbs and have more, whole grains. Like, you're trying to work with a person to say, what's going on with you as a person, and how can we connect all of these health, practices to you and your well-being. And again, if I just go back and look at the whole thing, there's no question about, you have made me, in knowing you, a healthier person. Because you'd given advice, everything from like, well, that's not really a good idea to eat that at this hour, or whatever, right? And you think that's a healthy thing you're doing, but it's not as really, and showing the back of the box and being like, this is what's in there, and so just connecting with you, and sort of having you as, sort of this, it's like a health therapist is kind of like what you are, that I would encourage anyone listening to get involved with you, because it will, your health will be better in the various ways that you bring to it.
Thank you so much. I hope anyone listening who may currently be in a dark state, a very depressed state, feeling anxious, and just know, like, Kevin's living proof that you can turn your life completely around.
Yep.
I saw him in some of his in his darkest place, and getting texts from Viv like, "Oh my God, he's back." You know, he's joking and he's telling jokes for the first time. And I can't remember how long was one of the texts. And just knowing like Kevin's living proof that you can turn your life around. So thank you, Kevin, for being here, for being everything that you are, who you are, and for sharing this incredible journey and your story with everyone. Really.
Thank you. Thank you for making this happen.
So teaching you how to nourish and detoxify your body so that you can heal from the inside out and age in reverse is what I do. Helping you have more physical and emotional vibrancy so you can fulfill your life purpose to go on and make the biggest impacts on other people's lives.
Yeah.
I am.
Well, I could say, people who are watching you didn't know you 30 years ago. I know I look like I'm 50. You look better than you did 30 years ago. So I think your age reversing is working.
Thank you for that. I truly believe in the process, and I feel it's my obligation to represent what I tout. So thank you. Okay. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Thanks, Kev, from the bottom of my heart. And I love the fact that we met when we were 18 and 19, and I know that we will know each other literally for the rest of our lives. Yeah. You bring me so much joy. I love you.
I love you too. Okay, thank you.
Bye, everyone.